Monash Council is in the process of having their elections in October. To talk about the Monash Council, it's with great pleasure I'd like to introduce the Councillor Robert Davis in our studios this morning. Good morning and welcome to our program.
Good morning, Derek. Thank you for having me.
Robert, first of all, will you be able to briefly tell us about Monash Council?
Yeah, so Monash Council is a city in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne. We have a population of about 185,000 people. It's one of the bigger councils and cities in Melbourne. We do have the lowest or near the lowest rates in all of metropolitan Melbourne, and that's something that we're all very proud of, that we can keep rates low. And we also have a strong financial position as well. So the council has no debt. We have a very strong balance sheet, and we're running a surplus of about $20 million a year. So, and that means that we have the cash there to invest in the facilities and the services that the community needs. So it's look, in my view, it's a very strong, well-run council, and we need to keep it that way.
Okay. What are some of the issues that council has been confronting over the recent years?
Yeah, so development is always a big issue in the community, and particularly with the growing population that we have in the city of Monash. So there's always a lot of controversy over development in the suburbs, and really that's, I guess, a bit of pushback from the community around 3 and 4 unit developments. And what those developments do is they take away some of the parking for the community on the streets. They provide more congestion, and there's overlooking and overshadowing issues on the neighbors. So the community's pushed back on that, and that's taken up some time. There's also issues around development in the activity centers. So these activity centers, especially Glen Waverley and Oakley, are very, very vibrant. Both malls in Kingsway and Glen Waverley and Eaton Mall in Oakley have really been strong social areas. And so we need to manage this growth. And for instance, in Oakley, we've just started building a new car park, and that car park will aid the continued development of Oakley by providing places for people to park when they do go visit those social spaces and when they do go shopping. So dealing with those development issues has been a strong focus on council. Yeah. The other areas that we've had to deal with are, we have an aging population in the city of Monash, and this is the issue that we've really faced for the last 4 years. So making sure that we provide areas and facilities for aged care, and looking after our aged by providing the social environment that they can entertain themselves, and making sure that they're well connected with the rest of the community is very important. And probably the issue that's starting to come up as the population transitions, we're now getting quite a significant amount of growth in the junior areas. So the issue, I think, of perhaps the next 4 years will be how do we cater for the demands of the new young families which are coming into the area, that require sports facilities, that require all of the other social things that are required for families, and we have to keep providing those facilities and services.
Okay. But during your time, did you have any sort of thing where you fought for some issues the way you wanted it?
Yeah, look, certainly there's always significant issues that council faces and local areas face. So for instance, in the Mulgrave Ward, which is the area I'm in, the Waverley Park power lines issue has been a strong focus from council and from myself. It's a state planning issue, but council does have a role of advocacy and making sure that the residents of Waverley Park have access to the right people. I've also put up 2 motions to council on the Waverley Park situation. So making sure that we promote those issues and they get to the fore of the public's knowledge is important. I've also advocated very strongly over the Brandon Park school site. And for instance, that school site, there was 5 school sites that were sold off by the state government. Most of them, or all of them, had 5% open space, but in the Brandon Park site, we were able to get 15% open space on that site. And that was the one site that was in my area. So having pushed really hard on getting that extra open space, I think will be really good for the community. It'll make sure that one of the biggest development sites in Monash serves the community as well as serves the owners of that site. And development, I think I've been, I guess, a standout advocate against inappropriate development to make sure that the community's views and residents' views are heard over those of the developers. So we need to have a balance between development and what the community's views are.
This new term, what are your objectives?
So I've always been a strong supporter of families. I think families are the core of our society, so I think we always need to put the interests of families first. And so whether that's fighting inappropriate development to make sure that families live in a low congestion, friendly environment, making sure that we have the facilities that we need for sports and other things is very important. So that's the core of, I guess, one of the things I want to continue to fight for. Another area that I think has really come to the forefront in the last year is the rising crime rate.
Crime rate.
So crime in the city of Monash has increased by 24%, and I think we need to take some really proactive stances to help combat that. Now, it's not council's job to be the police, but there are ways that we can strengthen the community's ability to assist. And one of those is supporting our neighborhood watch groups, which I think we need to do more to help them. Another interesting idea is CCTV. Now, CCTV isn't new, but what we do need to do is work with the individuals and residents to make sure that we have our critical areas covered from a CCTV perspective. Now, the police have trialed this in smaller areas, and it's been very successful in cutting the crime rate in small areas that were targeted by criminals. So I think what we need to do is perhaps broaden that, involve the public and the police and council in making sure that we strengthen our ability to monitor and fight crime by making sure that we have coverage in those transitional areas where we can stop criminal activity.
Finally, Robert, is there anything you want to add on this campaign?
Yeah, well, look, I've worked hard over the last 4 years for the community, but also the Sri Lankan community, which has a very strong representation in the ward of Mulgrave. I've also worked to support the community from the Pinewood Community Bank, where I'm chairman of. But I guess the other thing I want to say is that this election is very important, and what we do need is strong, independent candidates to step up and participate. We don't want council just to be a political backwards and forwards between the major parties. We need strong independent candidates. And for instance, in the Mulgrave ward, Varosh Pereira, who's a very well-known Sri Lankan person, he stepped up, he's put his hand up, and it's great to see somebody with such a multicultural commitment is putting his hand up for council. There's also other candidates like Steve Yanko, who's a local business person and chairman of a primary school, who's put his hand up. So having these strong, community-focused people, independent of politics, is very, very important. So I urge voters to make sure that they scrutinize the ballot. We've got 20 people that are running in Mulgrave. Scrutinize who the people are and make sure that they'll represent strong, independent voices on council.
Okay. Thank you, Robert, once again. A big thank you. We always help the Sri Lankan community over the years. And let me wish you all the very best.
Thanks very much, Derek. Really appreciate having me here again.
Thank you.